Welcome to SIM-PAC Live. I'm your host, Jeff Matthews, and today we talk to Costa Casiou from SPINFRA, an infrastructure advisory company. Welcome, Costa.
Thank you, Jeff.
Costa, you run an infrastructure advisory company, and you've got a particular interest in sustainability. It's across your website, it's across what you do. You've spoken at SIM-PAC in Brisbane. And it's probably one area of sustainability that I don't have a good knowledge of, and I'm looking for you to teach me today as well. And infrastructure, these are big developments, a lot of it, capital intensive stuff. And is sustainability, what are you seeing out there? Is it becoming more serious? Are people getting serious about it? Or is it lip service still, or people actually really trying to make meaningful change in their infrastructure development and investments?
Yeah, great observation, Jeff. Perspective, there's definitely an appetite to incorporate sustainability in infrastructure development projects, nationally and internationally. The feedback from many asset owners, business owners is, where do we start? Look for and how do we change within the way we plan and develop infrastructure projects? So how do they incorporate improvements within their business operations? So it's most definitely real, it's active. Our role is about supporting these asset owners and business owners in planning, delivering, and executing strategies around how they can become more sustainable in the way they develop businesses.
And what sort of, just for the audience, what sort of infrastructure, what's your, I don't know if you have a typical, advisory capacity, what sort of infrastructure development are we talking about here?
So it ranges from very small energy related projects right through to large multi-billion-dollar infrastructure builds, such as roads, rail, oil, gas plants, mining, sources of water.
And you work, you're based in South Australia, but you work across Australia?
Yes, so our headquarters are in South Australia, and we have a presence in Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney at the moment.
Cool, very cool. And in terms of supply chain for these infrastructure development, I mean, one of the things that's suddenly coming to the fore, I think the reporting for tier one companies is going to give an acute focus to the supply chain. And we notice this at SIM-PAC, because at SIM-PAC we cover everything from mining through to composting, and it's very difficult for some people to get their head around how broad we are. It's really interesting when you, as you know, when you come to a conference, you rub shoulders with people you normally wouldn't rub shoulders with, and we're so used to being in our little silos, our vertical markets, and this whole supply chain needs to talk to itself. Are you seeing that coming to the fore as well in these infrastructure projects?
Very much the case. End of the market, Jeff, where businesses and asset owners who typically would not get exposure to infrastructure advisors like ourselves or project developers, whereby they tend to go out alone. They don't understand who else is out there developing similar and like-minded projects. And what our key role in the supply chain is very important, the asset owners to need, and being able to collaborate partnerships, augmenting capacity, so giving them scale with resources and advice on how to best approach these opportunities, being able to optimize for impact. So really focusing on how do we get to the market and exposed to opportunities. And lastly, facilitating transactions. So being able to create partnerships and opportunities where engagements can occur with smaller players in the market, typically wouldn't get an opportunity to be involved in such projects.
And what do those smaller companies look like? What are you talking about? What sort of companies do you think that could easily be integrated into those bigger projects?
Smaller companies very much around product development and niche service offerings, whereby they're smaller in scale and capacity in terms of resources and IP, and very specialised, have got a market proposition, however, don't really have the ability to scale because they don't have capital, the time, or resources to be able to develop those partnerships and opportunities whereby we help them very much develop a presence and position themselves in the market to be able to promote their product and promote their offering.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I remember one particular speaker from Brisbane was from Raptor Environmental, and she dealt with wildlife issues that you're building roads or something, and you had native or rare or endangered species of birds and lizards and other things, and her services were to be able to let the development go ahead by building in some form of protection for the wildlife. So that's a very specialist service, and it's something that she would be able to scale her business up dramatically, but very important when you've got a road that's stuck and you can't move it forward.
Very much so. And what we do, introduce them to the development players who would seek out services and collaborate and be you. So bring the capability to the need in the market and very much facilitate that integration, whether it's at a planning level, a delivery level, or even a business that's looking at upscaling their offering to the market, being able to introduce that offering and making them either unique or increase their capability and to others. So we're seeing that at the moment with smaller players not being able to penetrate, if you like, because they may not have the bandwidth or they don't have the relationships or the connections within the broader market to be able to have the right connections. And this is what SIM-PAC well is that it creates an audience for networking and to facilitate the conversation around what those unique offerings are to others in the market that previously may not have been aware. And Raptor's a perfect example where we saw that in February.
Yeah, brilliant. And what advice have you got? For the people looking to at their infrastructure projects now, where do you think there needs to be a shift in their focus for the future, especially with this tier 1 reporting coming up? Do you think they definitely have to be more sustainable minded, and that also means bringing in more of the small players in the supply chain to be able to deliver a total a carbon footprint or reduce a carbon footprint across the total development?
My view on this, Jeff, is that it all starts at the planning phase. And if you have a value engineering mindset where the key parameters of implementing change in sustainability and really drive the path of early engagement between all key offerings, integrating that within and testing that in the planning phase, and be able to quantify what that benefit is before you even start thinking about the development. So what my advice would be is very much around invest up front, get the key subject matter experts and players on board in a collaborative space, and understand by what those benefits and changes are from a sustainability point of view, so that you can implement and realize those benefits at the back end. What we find, Jeff, is that a lot of time pressures and cost constraints in large capital intensive drive a fast track approach, fast track thinking where we'll be able to implement that as we go along, or we don't have enough money now, let's just make do with what we've got. And what we're finding is that large infrastructure projects are taking a lot longer to finish. They're costing a lot more money. We're not actually realizing a product or offering that we had intended on receiving. So lose, 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 because that focus isn't dedicated and prioritized at the front end through planning.
Yes. Yes, in fact, it's the old thing of business in both Australia and New Zealand that, if you give somebody, a dollar to go and do something with, they'll go and do something with the dollar, not actually take the dollar and plan to do something.
Yeah.
And it's our mentality. Possibly you could look at both of our heritage in the countries and go, well, we did it with number 8 wire, and by going out and doing it that way in the past. But as the dollars start to get increasingly more expensive, mistakes are dramatically more expensive once they're in the middle of a operation and changing your mind at a planning stage.
The other point I'd like to add as well, Jeff, and this is coming back to the point you made earlier, supply chain. What I see is there's significant capability in the market, and I think there's a misconception. I think the misconception is, well, there's not enough capability, not enough resources, not enough people offering service, where in fact my observations are very much contrary. It is out there. We just don't know where to find it, or we don't know how to best bring it together. And coming back to your example earlier around Raptor, they provide a very where, in fact, unless you know who they are and what they do, you're not able to implement their services within the project.
All the time, meeting other people from a much that are in these smaller and specialised areas, and you understand that capability. So yes, I totally agree with you. I think capability is there. I hear it all the time that we don't have enough talent to implement this transition, this energy transition, and this this transition towards sustainability. But I see a lot of those, a lot of the talent is out there working in their own businesses and small consultancies. They've maybe it's possibly a societal thing where they left the mainstream 20 years ago because they could see the mainstream wasn't going in the right direction fast enough. So they left and went out on their own because they knew that we had to change.
Yep.
And now that the bigger businesses starting to go, oh, now we've got to do this, those people are all out there and are dispersed. Mm-hmm. And so companies like yours and yes, and mine, SIM-PAC, that we try and bring people like you into our fold, because we know you're going to find people across that supply chain, and that's going to be useful for you, and it's going to be useful in the end. So, so it might be that people have to look in a different place for that talent. It is out there. I see a lot of talented people, by the way.
Most certainly. And what we're also seeing across the board, especially in Australia at the moment, is that there's a change in how consultants are consulting and what their offering is. And we're seeing a very quick shift from the big generalist consultant that can do a number of things to very much a lot of new niche boutique consultants that only focus on one or two key offerings and really spend their time becoming specialists in that field, because the market recognizes that we're actually after the specialty, not the not the generalist.
Not the generalist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a big reason why I founded SPINFRA back in 2023. In that, it was very clear there was a gap in the market between the big players and the smaller players, like, and how they collaborated and engaged within the market. And what we're finding is that supporting the low to mid market players who typically um, aren't able to afford or reach out to the larger players allows them to make progress because they're able to engage with those on their same wavelength, and they're able to engage with organizations and specialists who understand their needs and understand that they need to be flexible and they need to be available, and that speed to market is very important, Jeff. You know, at the point capital is very constrained, the cost of doing business is getting more expensive by the day. We're seeing that a lot of smaller organizations and asset owners want to implement change and change quickly. They do not want to be sitting around a table for 6 to 12 months analyzing and discussing options. They want to do the upfront planning work very quickly. They want to engage with their stakeholders in the market quickly, and they want to execute quickly because they want to realize the gain quickly. And when you have this sense of urgency, it creates momentum. In the
Yes.
past, what we've found, Jeff, is that there hasn't been urgency. And no urgency means no progress. And this is why a lot of the projects are costing a lot of money and they're not being delivered on time. So a change in the mindset, a change in how you get your house in order, and a change in how we can connect the right service providers along the supply chain will really help drive the momentum and create opportunities for everyone.
Yes. 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 I see it. And definitely. And we do need it because the pace, you know, one of the things about the energy transition, it's happening whether we like it or not. You know, you can, you know, in the United States, talk about digging up more coal. You can talk about nuclear power in Australia, but the energy transition is happening all around us, and it's happening really, really rapid. And that also means that opens up a huge opportunity for industry to have, you know, especially Australia, to have essentially, you know, become this industrial superpower of the decarbonised world. I mean, really, if the opportunity's there, but boy, we're going to have to act fast, because, you know, other countries are not hanging about. China's not hanging about. They're not spending a lot of time planning and sitting on their thumbs about stuff.
100%. Even locally here in Australia, what we're finding is that whilst all the focus on the mega projects that require hundreds of billions of dollars, what we're seeing is that there are great opportunities at the lower market. You know, that sub 100 million, where they're looking at developing, you know, waste to energy projects in Australia that haven't been developed before. Very big in Europe, but there is a fundamental shift now to really proving new technologies and trying new things away from just wind farms, renewable solar battery type initiatives and projects that are well known by everyone. And we're seeing that with a lot of investment banks and high net worth family offices that we deal with, in that the appetite to invest in those new projects that have sustainability benefit to the world.
Yes.
They just don't know enough about it. So our role in the market is not only to advise, but to help educate and be that conduit between those that want exposure and are able to provide that exposure through funding, and others who are looking at developing their project but don't have access to the because it's not traditional or mainstream, so to speak. So
Yes.
our role is very much
Yes. I've got two companies in the SIM-PAC Live Sustainability Awards this year. We've got two companies that do waste for energy, and then we've got about another two or three that are in the biochar side of it, doing waste to energy as well, but in a different way, in carbon sequestration. So a lot of development going on in that area. Very exciting. Just we had a speaker in South Australia, Matt DeMarco, and he talked about sustainability becoming built into tendering. And I think his company, Inter, I think they were part of a multi-billion dollar tender, and which they were successful in helping put together. But they put the whole ESG strategy and carbon strategy together at the tendering stage. So they went through and they looked at the entire carbon footprint of the whole project and how they could minimise it in the tendering. That's a big shift. And are you seeing that at all? That people who want to be getting into that, and that brought a whole lot of the smaller players in because they were supplying niche products that could actually enable things right at the tendering stage. Are you seeing any of that, or is that something that you've brushed up against?
Yeah, very much so. Asset owners who are looking at developing infrastructure projects are very much incorporating sustainability metrics in the planning and tendering, and they're seeking a level of commitment and certainty from the market, and also understanding how proponents would approach things from a value point of view, and they're investing a lot more time. Back to my earlier point around being able to quantify what that is before they commit to the actual delivery of these large infrastructure projects. So very much the case, and we currently support our clients in working through that process of understanding how you evaluate and quantify. Also, what is specific to their needs, because their needs are the same as other asset owners. So it's being able to understand and quantify those upfront tender facts and seeing that through. So yes, very much so. We have Jeff, and we also encourage our clients to focus on that specifically when they go through this phase.
Wonderful, cool. Costa, look, it's been great having you on the show. We look forward to having you at SIM-PAC Live Melbourne. You're a sponsor. SPINFRA is a sponsor of our the inaugural SIM-PAC Live Sustainability Awards. That's going to be an incredible night. It's going to be 60, 70 finalists and 23 awards. You're going to give a couple out to people. And yeah, we look forward to that networking going on. And thank you for your time. I learned something. I was encouraged, which is what everything's about. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Jeff, and I look forward to attending and presenting SIM-PAC Live in Melbourne in December this year.